Did you miss out on CloudMD or Well Health Technologies? Well, fear not, because in today's video, I'll be exploring a new stock that plays in a similar space that just IPO'd on the TSXV venture and may run up just like CloudMD or Well Health. But let's find out in this video. Just as a disclaimer, I'm not a financial advisor and you should do your own due diligence because the stock we're talking about today is currently not profitable, so it is a very high risk investment, but I personally think there is great reward in it if you get in early enough. What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Daniel and here we talk about stock market investing. If you guys are interested in US stocks, I also started a second channel called Daniel's Stock Bites, and you can check that out in the description down below. On that channel, what we're focused on is doing 2 to 5 minute videos, so very short and to the point videos on different US stocks. Without further ado, let's jump into today's video. Today's company that we're talking about is called Newtopia. It trades on the TSX venture under the symbol NEWU, and it was brought to my attention initially from one of my subscribers in the comments. Thank you so much for recommending this company, because when I first looked at it and just saw the financials and the growth of this company, right away, something just clicked, and honestly, I just fell in love with the company. So I'll be explaining to you a few things in this video. First, I'll be talking about what the company does. Second, I'll be talking about how a customer goes to the product. Third, I'll be talking about whether the system is a hoax. Fourth, I'll be telling you the pros and cons of the system that I see. Fifth, I'll be talking about the financials of the company. And last but not least, I'll be talking about what I'm doing with this stock in my opinion. If I were to sum up Newtopia's current vision into 5 words, it's to see a world without diabetes. Newtopia is a habit-changing platform for disease prevention. The disease that they primarily focus on right now is obesity. Newtopia has reportedly saved $1,464 per employee for the companies that they did a randomized control test over for the past 3 years. So what are the steps for a customer to go through Newtopia's platform? To begin, Newtopia will take a customer and walk them through a personal profile. And this is to give Newtopia an idea of the behavioral science behind each person. Things like motivation and personality play a big role in behavioral change. The second step for this process is to get a genetics test. And the reason for a genetics test is because obesity is often linked with genetics. If Newtopia knows a gene type, it can help them better serve the customer based on the genetics. The third step is the customer is matched with a coach. And what the coach does is they come alongside the customer, do weekly or bi-weekly check-ins or whatever interval they end up setting up. And they'll help set goals for the customer. This could be goals like losing 1% body fat through the changing of the diet or through physical exercise every day. After that, it's up to the customer to go into the real world and implement these new strategies. The customers continue to interact with the coaches on a regular basis, and they modify the plan based on how the customer is doing. If you're looking for a more detailed view of how the whole process works, I've thrown that up on the screen and you can click pause right now. Now that we've been through the whole customer experience, the real question as investors is, does the system really work? Well, we don't exactly know for sure unless you know friends or family who have tried the system out. But we do know that Newtopia has full CDC recognition for its alternate diabetes prevention program. And getting CDC recognition is no small thing. You can't just go in there with some napkin notes and have them approve the plan. Newtopia has done research behind this, and they do show the savings that employers can have based on employees who actually engage with their platform. Those employees who sign up and kind of drop off after a couple months, of course they're not going to see any sort of improvement. Those who go through the program and actually stick to the plan, I have no doubt in my mind that they're actually going to be achieving goals or getting closer to their goals. That's because when people change their habits, like how they eat or how they exercise, it's a no-brainer that these things affect the health of a person, especially their weight. If you want to read the article on Newtopia getting CDC recognition, I've linked that in the description. Now let's move on to the pros and the cons of the system. So the pros and the cons that we're going to talk about here are not necessarily the pros to the customers, but it's more pros to us investors. So let's start off with the first one. Employers are realizing that employees are their greatest asset. Keeping them happy and healthy is becoming more and more important. And the reason for this is if an employee is unhappy or is unhealthy, they will be less productive. So an unhappy employee is usually not very motivated at their job, so therefore their production output is going to be less. Also, an unhealthy employee, they're going to be taking more time off sick, and therefore the employer doesn't get as much out of that employee. So if an employer can encourage their employees who are possibly overweight or obese, which 7 out of 10 Americans actually are, if they can get them to enroll in Newtopia's program, then to me, I can see these employees becoming healthier. And usually when you're healthier, you end up becoming a little bit more happier because you're happy with the way that your body looks, as well as you just have more energy because you're eating better. The second pro of Newtopia, which I already touched on earlier, is that 7 out of 10 Americans are overweight or obese. Some studies even say 8 out of 10 Americans. And what this statistic translates into for Newtopia is a large target market. If you think of the US around 360 million people, that's roughly around maybe 280 million people who are overweight or obese. And on top of this, a study estimates that the economic impact of obesity and overweightness is around $480.7 billion in direct healthcare costs and $1.24 trillion in lost productivity. So when Newtopia pitches this platform to a company, they're going to lead with statistics like this, showing that companies are losing a lot of money due to lost productivity in employees who are possibly overweight and obese. And on top of that, they'll be referencing their 3-year randomized control trial, which has saved companies on average $1,464 per employee per year. The third pro of the system is that they have an accountability aspect to it. And this is more so a pro for the customer, because typically when you see weight loss programs and it's all on the customer to do, people get demotivated very quickly after a couple months. Look at your local gyms. Usually from the months of January to March, it's a lot more packed in there. However, as summer rolls around and people go on vacation, they become less and less inclined to go to the gym. And once they've stopped that habit, when fall comes around after summer's over, they end up not going back to the gym because the habit is not formed. And when New Year's rolls around and people make New Year's resolutions, then they retake that resolution of going to the gym and losing X amount of weight. But with Newtopia, you have a coach that comes alongside you and pushes you to stick to the plan, whether that being cooking healthier, going out for walks after dinner, or going to the gym. They're going to keep you accountable to the goals that you set with them. And this leads into the fifth pro of the system, which is bite-sized goals. So with Newtopia's platform and the frequent check-ins, the coach will help personalize goals into small bite-sized goals, not just give you one big goal at the end of it, saying you're going to lose 10 pounds and we're going to stick to the schedule from now till then. But no, they're actually going to be personalizing your schedule. Maybe for the first couple of weeks, you want to lose a pound or 2. Then the second month, you want to lose 2 to 3 pounds, and so on. Newtopia claims that the customer or the business that they're selling to doesn't pay until they see results. There's a bit of a caveat to this, I believe, which is basically the company does pay a bit in terms of the time that the coaches take out, as well as some of the kits that they send. But Newtopia as a company doesn't profit from the sale until the customer sees savings. And ultimately, they're not going to be profiting more than the company saves, because that wouldn't make sense for the company. Now that we've looked at some of the pros, let's look at some of the cons of the system. Newtopia states that after the customers go through the initiation phase, that's all the setup and getting hooked up with a coach, customers can join into a Facebook or Instagram group, and this will act as like a community to help motivate each other. However, there's a detrimental side to this. People who don't see results or any improvement, they might end up dropping off the ball because they're depressed and they're not meeting their goals. So I think this social media approach can be good, but also can backfire. Another con of the system is privacy. A lot of people might be a little bit skeptical about sending their genes into a company, especially a company that is a for-profit company. This is because of all the data privacy news and how companies are abusing people's data. And I think this can be one of the barriers for customers to actually take full advantage of Newtopia's platform. The fact that they have to send in a DNA sample, they don't know what that DNA sample is going to be used for. But personally, I don't really care if people have my DNA sample, because if it's ultimately going to help me to lose weight, then I think it's better for them to know that so they can tailor the program for my needs. The last thing about this system that might be a bit of a downer is that you have to regularly meet with your coaches. And people are busy these days or have a lot of things to do. The last thing they might want to do is to have another appointment added to their calendar. So I can see a lot of people like managers and those who are higher up not have time for things like this. Now let's jump into the financials and the statistics of the company. So the first thing I want to point out is that revenue has increased 67% last quarter to $2.69 million, and gross profit almost doubled year over year to $1.41 million. So we can see that Newtopia has been increasing their revenues at a fairly drastic rate. You can see that from the yearly revenue increase as well as the quarterly revenue increase. One thing that you should note when we're looking at the quarterly revenues, Q1 is a period with the best sales. And this is probably likely due to New Year's resolutions happening, and it could be companies' new fiscal year, so looking for new programs to sign up their employees for. People in HR are also humans as well, and they also go through their own New Year's resolutions. So when they come back from the Christmas break, they're probably like, maybe we should look for a program to get our employees healthier. So this is why Newtopia sales for Q1 are typically higher than the other periods. If we look at Newtopia's revenue model, there's a three-part model going on here. So first is a $230 fee for the welcome kit. In this welcome kit, I think there's a genetics test material, as well as a few health monitoring devices, and maybe just the setup fee for the actual personality test. Then it's $65 a month for a subscription, which is only billed if the customer actually goes for the appointments. And lastly, there's a $200 per success fee that Newtopia takes if a customer actually hits their goals. So I think this is the whole statement of Newtopia doesn't make money until the customer actually sees savings. There isn't going to be a straightforward direct correlation as to what counts as savings from a person going through Newtopia's program, but I think how they measure it is based off of how many goals the person actually succeeds and achieves. Because Newtopia has done the research and proven that companies can save about $1,464 per employee who goes through their program. On average, Newtopia sees about $1,600 per patient over a 3-year period. This is because engagement won't always be 100%. They've estimated this to be about 70% in the first year and 45% in the next year. And as well as success is not guaranteed. So they estimate and they're conservative at around a 50% success rate. And this is not because the program is bad, but it's typically because patients just don't follow through on the plan. One other piece of traction that Newtopia has seen is that there's a lot more engagement in 2020. When there's more engagement, this means more revenue for Newtopia. Because as we saw before, Newtopia charges the client $65 per month per customer for their engagement. If we look at the ownership of the company, we can see it's very diverse between institutions, insiders, as well as just retail investors. When we look at Newtopia compared to people who play in a very similar space, we can see that Newtopia is relatively inexpensive. They currently have a $95 million market cap, and they have revenues of $6.5 million for the first half of the year. If the revenues for the third and fourth quarter grow only 40%, which is a conservative estimate, this will end up adding $3.8 million to their total revenue for 2020, bringing their total revenue to $10.3 million. If we create a PS ratio from this revenue estimate and their current market cap, this is a ratio of just under 10. Comparing this with other telehealth stocks like CloudMD, Well Health, Teladoc, and American Well, they all sport a PS ratio of 25 to 40. The gross margins for this company are also improving. If you look at Q2 of 2020, they had gross margins of 52% compared to Q2 of 2019 at 45%. Taking a look at their balance sheet, we can see their current ratio sits somewhere around a 1.3. They have $2.7 million in current assets and $2 million in current liabilities. So the company is decently well funded for the next year. Not a superb balance sheet, but passable. Taking a look at the cash flow statement, there's still a negative cash flow, as the company is losing more cash than it's actually bringing in. And this is one of the risks that you take when you're investing in a company like Newtopia. And Newtopia will ultimately rely on raising more capital from the public market or taking on more debt. But just like CloudMD and Well Health, Newtopia will likely raise more capital from the market by issuing shares. Now we come to the point in the video where I talk about what I'm doing. So right now I do have a small position in Newtopia, and I bought in around $1.05. Today the stock trades for $1.04, so if you buy in tomorrow or shortly after I release this video, I'm sure the prices will stay roughly stagnant. I don't expect this company to pop off until more news really comes up for it. I think when they release next quarter earnings or maybe other acquisitions that they're doing in the future, this will definitely propel the stock forward. And this is what we see with CloudMD as well as Well Health Technologies. Both these companies created a lot of investor hype with the constant news that they're releasing about buying this company and that company and signing up this company for the services, etc. I personally bought into this company because of the low PS ratio. With a PS ratio of 10 and the company growing its revenues at around 67%, this is a fairly undervalued company in my opinion. But I think it is undervalued right now because it still presents a lot of risk. And also, they're not very exposed to the market, so not many people know about Newtopia. And ultimately, that's why I'm bringing this onto my channel as soon as possible so that you guys who are interested in finding new companies and the best deals out there, you can have this on your radar. You can thank me by hitting that like button right now because you guys are the true MVPs who watch until this point. I also believe the whole work from home trend has been bringing people onto Newtopia's platform and causing more engagement because people have more time on their hands now that they don't have to commute to work. So they save about half an hour to maybe 2 hours for certain people. They can spend more time on their own health and wellness. So this is a good trend for Newtopia going forward as a lot more offices move towards an agile workstation and you're only in the office a few times a week. I think the business model for Newtopia, selling to actual companies instead of consumers, is quite smart because when you go to a company and you pitch to it, you're not just gaining one customer, you're gaining multiple customers depending on the number of employees that actually sign up for the platform. Versus if they're going to go B2C or business to consumer, then they have to pitch to individual customers, service individual customers and all their complaints, and that could be a bit of a nightmare. So I can see Newtopia's system as a three-way win. Newtopia ultimately wins when they sign up customers and they generate revenue based on people getting results. And they've proven that they can get results on their platform. The company wins because they don't pay unless employees are actually using the system. The company pays less if people aren't succeeding, and ultimately they can cancel within a year. And finally, the company can expect to see a return on their investments in terms of happier, more motivated, as well as healthier employees, which will ultimately translate into more revenue produced for the company. And lastly, for the end user or employee, this stakeholder wins because A, they don't have to pay for a program that will help them lose weight, B, they will lose weight and feel happier and healthier, and C, they can perform better at the job and have more job satisfaction. So if you're looking to buy Newtopia, you also go to a platform like Questrade. If you want to sign up for Questrade, there's links down below and you'll get free cash for signing up. I'd love to hear your comments down below on what you think about this company, and is there anything that I missed in my analysis? Because here, as a community of investors, it's always great to learn from one another. If you enjoyed this video, smash the thumbs up button, as well as if you're new here, subscribe and hit that notification bell. Keep up the grind and have a great day.